Commander Kieran stood on the bridge of his warship, staring at the endless stars beyond the viewing screen. He had served the Veltari Dominion for 20 cycles, patrolling the empty regions of space where nothing ever happened. His crew was bored. He was bored. But orders were orders, and someone had to watch the borders. Behind him, 2 junior officers whispered to each other near the sensor station. Kieran's hearing was sharp enough to catch their words. They were telling stories again, the old legends about the Terrans. "They say the Terrans could survive wounds that would kill any of us," one officer said quietly. "They felt pain but kept fighting anyway." "I heard they came from a death world," the other replied. "A planet so dangerous that everything there evolved to be a predator. Even the plants could kill you." Kieran turned around sharply. "Enough of that nonsense. Focus on your work." The officers straightened immediately, their crystalline skin glowing faint blue with embarrassment. Kieran felt a moment of guilt for being harsh, but he couldn't allow superstition to spread among his crew. The Terran legends were just stories, nothing more. Old tales from a time when the galaxy was young, and the Veltari were still learning to travel between stars. According to the ancient texts, the Terrans came from a region of space called the Sol system. They were beings of flesh and bone, not crystal like the Veltari. They were physically weak compared to most species. Their ships were slower, their weapons were primitive, but they had something else. Something the old texts called determination. They never gave up, never surrendered, and somehow always found a way to win. Then, 10,000 cycles ago, all signals from the Sol system stopped. The Terrans went silent. No ships, no messages, nothing. The Dominion marked that region as the Sol exclusion and forbade anyone from entering it. Over time, the Terrans became legends. Most educated Veltari didn't believe they ever existed at all. Kieran returned to his seat and pulled up his daily reports. Supply levels were normal. All systems were functioning. The patrol route would take them along the edge of the exclusion zone, but they would never actually enter it. That was against Dominion law. A soft chime interrupted his reading. The senior sensor officer, a veteran named Talus, looked up from his console with a confused expression. "Commander, I'm detecting an energy signature." "What kind?" Kieran asked. "Unknown. It's coming from inside the Sol exclusion zone." Kieran felt a chill run through his crystalline body. "That's impossible. Nothing's been in there for 10,000 cycles." "I know, sir, but the readings are clear. Multiple contacts. They're moving." Kieran stood and walked to the sensor station. The screen showed several blips on the very edge of the exclusion zone. They were small, moving in formation and heading toward Veltari space. "Could it be a malfunction?" Kieran asked. Talus ran the diagnostics 3 times. "No, sir. The sensors are working perfectly. Those contacts are real." Kieran felt his pulse quicken. "What kind of energy signatures?" "Fusion drives. Primitive by our standards, but functional. And, sir, I'm detecting electromagnetic emissions consistent with active scanning systems. Whoever they are, they're looking for something." The whispers started again among the crew. Kieran could hear the word Terran spreading across the bridge like fire. He raised his hand for silence. "We don't know what those ships are. They could be pirates, refugees, or explorers from an unknown species. Send a coded message to Dominion Command. Include all sensor data. Until we receive orders, we maintain our position and observe." The message was sent using faster-than-light communication. It would reach Dominion Command within hours. Kieran expected orders to investigate, or perhaps to pull back and let a larger fleet handle the situation. The response came faster than expected. The Dominion Council had reviewed his report. Half of them thought it was nothing. A quarter thought it was a threat. The remaining quarter, the elders who remembered the old ways, recommended caution. But the final decision was clear. Kieran was promoted to Battle Group Commander and ordered to assemble a fleet. Within 2 cycles, 20 Veltari warships gathered at Kieran's position. It was an impressive force, more than enough to handle any threat from primitive vessels. The Dominion didn't know what was emerging from the Sol exclusion, but they would meet it with overwhelming power. As the fleet moved toward the unknown contacts, Kieran reviewed everything the Dominion had about the Terrans. The files were old, some of them damaged or incomplete, but certain details stood out. The Terrans used kinetic weapons alongside energy weapons. They had something called nuclear missiles that could destroy entire cities. They wore armored suits that let them survive in environments that would kill most species. And they had a concept called total war, where entire populations mobilized for conflict. But what troubled Kieran most was a single line from an ancient Veltari commander's report, written 10,000 cycles ago. The Terrans do not fight like civilized beings. They fight like the universe itself is trying to kill them, because on their world, it was. The fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol exclusion. The unknown ships were there, just as the sensors had shown. 5 vessels. 4 were cruiser-sized, smaller than Kieran's warships. The 5th was larger, probably a carrier or command ship. "Open a channel," Kieran ordered. "All frequencies. Tell them to power down their weapons and prepare to be boarded for inspection." The communications officer sent the message. There was no response. "Send it again," Kieran said. "Add that failure to comply will result in the destruction of their vessels." Again, no response. The 5 ships continued moving, seemingly unaware of the Veltari fleet surrounding them. One of Kieran's officers spoke up. "Sir, maybe they can't understand our language?" Kieran considered this. It was possible. If these ships really were from the Sol exclusion, they might not know modern Veltari speech. But that didn't excuse their behavior. They were entering Dominion space without permission. "Fire a warning shot," Kieran commanded, "across the bow of the lead ship. Make it close enough that they can't ignore it." A beam of concentrated energy lanced across space, passing just meters in front of the largest unknown vessel. In Veltari military doctrine, this was the final warning. Any civilized species would immediately surrender, or at least attempt communication. Instead, the 5 ships scattered. They moved in patterns that Kieran had never seen before, each one taking a different vector at impossible angles. His tactical officer tried to track them, but the smaller ships were too fast, too agile. The carrier moved into a defensive position, while the 4 cruisers began circling the Veltari fleet like predators. "Sir, they're targeting our sensor arrays," the tactical officer reported, "and they're using some kind of jamming technology." "I'm losing tracking on—" The first Veltari destroyer exploded, not from a direct hit, but from something that overloaded its shields and fried every system simultaneously. The ship went dark and began drifting. "All ships, evasive action!" Kieran shouted. "Return fire!" But the unknown vessels were already moving again, and Kieran realized with growing horror that the legends might be true after all. The Terrans had returned, and they remembered how to fight. Captain Jinwoo stood on the bridge of the UES Indomitable, watching the alien fleet surround his small group of ships. He had been in space for 3 years, following star charts that were older than most nations on Earth. The journey from Earth to this region had been long and lonely, but finally they had found what they were looking for: other intelligent life. The problem was that the other intelligent life seemed ready to kill them. "Lieutenant Yuna, status report," Jinwoo said calmly. Yuna looked up from her communications console, her face tight with stress. "I've tried 17 different language protocols, sir, including the ancient Veltari fragments from the archives. No response. They just keep demanding our surrender." "Can you understand what they're saying?" "Yes, sir. Their language has evolved, but I can make out about 60%. They think we're hostile. They want us to power down and prepare to be boarded." Jinwoo sighed. This wasn't how first contact was supposed to happen. Earth's records from 10,000 years ago described the Veltari as a peaceful species, interested in trade and cultural exchange. Something had changed. "Keep trying to communicate," Jinwoo said. "Make it clear we come in peace. Broadcast our credentials, our mission statement, everything." The tactical officer, a young man named Tae Yang, spoke up nervously. "Sir, one of their ships is charging weapons." Jinwoo saw the energy build up on his screen. "All ships, prepare evasive maneuvers, but do not, I repeat, do not fire unless I give the order." A beam of energy shot across space, passing just in front of the Indomitable's bow. It was close enough that the shields registered the heat. Jinwoo gripped his chair's armrest. That was a warning shot. In any language, the meaning was clear. "They want us to surrender," Yuna said quietly. "What do we do?" Jinwoo made a decision. If they surrendered, they might be captured or killed, but if they fought, they would be proving the Veltari's fears correct. There was a third option, though, one that might give them a chance to escape and regroup. "All ships," Jinwoo transmitted. "Execute scatter pattern Delta. Make for open space. Avoid firing on the Veltari vessels unless absolutely necessary to defend yourselves." The 4 human cruisers broke formation instantly, each one moving in a different direction. The Indomitable, being the largest ship, moved into a defensive position. The human ships were smaller than the Veltari warships, which meant they were faster and more agile. It was an advantage they needed to use, but one of the Veltari destroyers moved to block their escape route. Its captain must have been aggressive, or maybe just following orders. The destroyer positioned itself directly in the path of the human carrier. Weapons charging. Jinwoo had no choice. "Helm, bring us about. Weapons, target their shield generators only. Disable, don't destroy." The Indomitable turned with surprising speed for such a large vessel. Its weapon systems came online, and Jinwoo could hear the hum of the railguns charging. Humanity had learned a long time ago that sometimes the old ways worked best. Kinetic weapons were simple, reliable, and very effective. The first salvo hit the Veltari destroyer's shields, not with energy beams, but with solid projectiles moving at incredible speeds. The shields flickered and collapsed. Before the Veltari could respond, electromagnetic pulse missiles detonated near their hull. Every system on the destroyer went dark. "Target disabled, sir," Taeyang reported. "No casualties detected on their ship." "Good. Now get us out of here." But the battle was already spreading. The other Veltari ships had opened fire on the human cruisers. Jinwoo watched his tactical display as his captains used every trick in the book. The UES Dauntless, commanded by Hana, used the debris field from a nearby asteroid to mask her approach before disabling 2 more Veltari ships. The cruiser Vigilant used rapid course changes to make targeting impossible, while its point defense systems shot down incoming missiles. The Veltari were good fighters. Their ships were powerful, and their crews were well-trained. But they fought with predictable patterns, following standard military doctrine. The humans fought like people who had learned warfare from a planet that was constantly trying to kill them. Jinwoo saw another Veltari ship moving to flank the Dauntless. "Hana, you've got company on your port side." "I see them, Jinwoo." Hana's voice came through the communication system. "I've got an idea. It's going to look crazy. Do it." The Dauntless suddenly accelerated directly toward the Veltari flagship, the one that Jinwoo assumed was the command vessel. The Veltari captain must have thought the human ship was going to ram them, because they panicked and broke formation. In that moment of confusion, the Dauntless fired a spread of missiles at the flagship's sensor array. The missiles didn't explode. Instead, they released clouds of metallic chaff that blinded the Veltari sensors. "All human ships, fall back to Rally Point Gamma," Jinwoo ordered. "We've made our point. Time to leave." The 5 human vessels regrouped and began moving away from the Veltari fleet. Behind them, 6 Veltari warships floated dead in space, their crews alive, but their systems fried. It had taken 17 minutes. As they put distance between themselves and the Veltari, Yuna finally broke through the enemy encryption. She managed to intercept some of their internal communications. What she heard made her blood run cold. "Sir, you need to hear this," she said, routing the audio to Jinwoo's station. The Veltari were panicking. Their commander was sending emergency messages to their government. The words were fragmented, but the meaning was clear. They thought the legends were true. They thought the Terrans had returned to conquer them. Jinwoo closed his eyes and took a deep breath. "This is bad. We came here looking for allies, and now they think we're their ancient enemies come back to destroy them." "What do we do?" Taeyang asked. "We keep trying to communicate, and we stay close enough to monitor their transmissions. Maybe we can find someone willing to listen." Jinwoo paused, then added, "And we prepare for the possibility that we might have to fight again. Yuna, start working on a better translation program. We need to be able to talk to them properly." Over the next few cycles, as the humans kept their distance but remained in the region, they intercepted more Veltari communications. The news wasn't good. The Veltari Dominion was mobilizing. They were pulling ships from across their territory to defend against the human threat. But there was something else in the transmissions. Reports from the outer colonies. Attacks by an unknown species. The Veltari called them the Kresh. From what Jinwoo could understand, the Kresh were a hive-mind species that consumed everything in their path. "They're being attacked from 2 sides, Hana said during a conference call with the other ship captains. "Us and this Kresh swarm." "We're not attacking them," Jinwoo corrected. "We defended ourselves. There's a difference." "Try telling them that," Hana replied. "From their perspective, we just destroyed 6 of their ships without taking a scratch." Jinwoo studied the tactical maps. The Veltari were pulling their fleets inward, concentrating their forces to defend their core worlds. That left their outer colonies vulnerable, and the Kresh were taking advantage. An idea formed in his mind. It was risky. It might not work. But it was the only way he could think of to prove that humanity wasn't the enemy. "Plot a course for the nearest colony under Kresh attack," Jinwoo ordered. "We're going to help them whether they want us to or not." "Sir, that's crazy," Taeyang said. "They'll shoot at us the moment we arrive." "Maybe," Jinwoo admitted, "but maybe they'll also realize that we're not the monsters from their legends. Besides, we didn't come all this way just to start a war. We came to find allies. And sometimes you make allies by standing beside them in battle." The Indomitable and its escorts changed course, heading toward a colony world called Thessa 7. According to the intercepted transmissions, it was under heavy Kresh assault. The Veltari defense fleet there was outnumbered and losing. As they traveled, Yuna worked day and night on improving their translation software. Finally, after 3 days of effort, she managed to create a program that could speak modern Veltari fluently. "I think I can make them understand us now," she said, exhausted but triumphant. "Good work," Jinwoo said. "When we arrive at Thessa 7, you're going to have the most important job. Make them listen. Make them understand we're there to help, not to harm." Yuna nodded, the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Thessa 7 system. What they saw made even Jinwoo's experienced crew fall silent. Dozens of alien bioships filled the space around the colony world. The Veltari defenders were fighting bravely, but they were being overwhelmed. "Yuna," Jinwoo said quietly, "now would be a good time to make that call." Commander Kirin had been reassigned after the disaster with the human ships. The Dominion Council didn't officially blame him for losing 6 ships to 5 enemy vessels, but they didn't promote him either. Instead, they sent him to defend Thessa 7, an agricultural colony on the frontier. It was meant to be a quiet assignment where he could recover from his failure. That was 3 cycles ago. Now Thessa 7 was dying. The Kresh swarm had appeared without warning. Their bioships looked like massive insects, covered in organic armor and bristling with weapons that shot acidic projectiles. They didn't use metal or technology like normal species. Everything about them was alive, grown rather than built. Kieran stood on his bridge, watching the battle unfold. His small fleet of 12 ships was trying to hold back 30 Kresh bioships. It wasn't working. Every few minutes, another one of his vessels took critical damage. The Kresh were learning from each engagement, adapting their tactics. "Sir, the colony is reporting massive civilian casualties," his communications officer said. "The underground shelters are holding, but the Kresh are starting to bombard from orbit." "How long until the bombardment breaks through?" Kieran asked. 6 hours. Maybe less. Kieran felt his crystalline body grow cold. 3 million Veltari civilians were hiding in those shelters. Men, women, children. If the Kresh broke through, there would be no survivors. The Kresh didn't take prisoners. They consumed everything. Organic matter was processed into fuel for their ships. Metal and minerals were absorbed to grow more bioships. "Send another distress call to Dominion Command," Kieran ordered. "Tell them we need reinforcements immediately." "Already done, sir. They say the nearest fleet is 8 cycles away." 8 cycles. The colony would be dead in 6 hours. Kieran looked at his tactical display, trying to find some strategy that could save them. But there was nothing. His ships were outmatched and outnumbered. The Veltari had been the dominant power in this region for so long that they had forgotten what it meant to face a truly dangerous enemy. Then his sensors detected new contacts entering the system. "Unknown vessels approaching," the sensor officer reported. "Energy signatures match." "Sir, they match the Terran ships." Kieran felt fear and hope mixing in his chest. The humans. The beings who had destroyed 6 of his ships without effort. Were they here to finish what they started? Or was there another reason? His communications system came alive with a transmission. This time, it was in perfect Veltari language. "Veltari forces. This is Lieutenant Yuna of the United Earth ship Indomitable. We are here to help. Please respond." Kieran stared at the message. Help? Why would the humans help them? They were enemies, weren't they? His first officer, a young commander named Sivak, spoke quietly. "Sir, what if they're telling the truth? What if the old legends were wrong?" "The legends said they were warriors who never surrendered," Kieran replied. "Yes, but did the legends ever say they were conquerors? Or did we just assume that because we were afraid?" Kieran thought about the battle, where he had lost 6 ships. The humans could have destroyed those vessels completely, killed everyone aboard. Instead, they had disabled them. The crews survived. That wasn't the action of bloodthirsty conquerors. He made a decision that would either save millions of lives or doom them all. "Open a channel to the human fleet," Kieran said. Yuna's face appeared on his screen. She was young, probably barely an adult by Terran standards. Her eyes showed exhaustion, but also determination. "This is Commander Kieran of the Veltari Defense Fleet. We are defending this colony against the Kresh swarm. If your offer of help is genuine, we accept." Yuna smiled with relief. "It's genuine, Commander. Captain Jinwoo is transmitting tactical data to your fleet now. We've fought hive mind species before. We know their weaknesses." Data began flowing into Kieran's systems. Information about Kresh bioarmor, its weak points, the best frequencies to disrupt their neural connections. The humans had been studying the battle for the past hour, analyzing every detail. "The Kresh ships have soft spots at the joints where their armor plates meet," Yuna explained. "Your particle beams can penetrate there if you focus fire. And they don't adapt well to sudden changes in tactics. They rely on predictable responses from their enemies." Kieran studied the data. It made sense. His weapons officers began recalibrating their systems. "We're entering weapons range now," Yuna said. "Coordinating our attack pattern with yours. Follow our lead." The human ships moved into formation with the Veltari fleet. It should have been impossible. Two species who had never worked together, suddenly fighting side by side. But the humans made it look easy. They shared targeting information, adjusted their positions to cover the Veltari ship's weaknesses, and communicated clearly. Captain Jinwoo's voice came through on the command channel. "All ships, focus fire on Kresh Bioship Delta 7. Hit the joint sections, now!" Both human and Veltari weapons fired together. The combined assault overwhelmed the Kresh Bioship's defenses. Its organic armor cracked, and the creature inside died. The bioship began drifting, lifeless. "It worked," Sivak said with amazement. "Again," Jinwoo ordered. "Target Delta 9. They repeated the pattern. The Kresh swarm tried to adapt, but the humans kept changing tactics. One moment they fought at long range. The next, they closed to point-blank distance. They used the local asteroid field for cover. They employed electronic warfare to confuse the Kresh neural network. Kieran watched as the human carrier, the Indomitable, deployed small fighter craft. He hadn't known the humans used such things. The fighters were piloted by actual living beings, not AI systems. They flew in patterns that seemed suicidal, but somehow they survived, targeting the Kresh command ships. The leader of the fighter squadron was someone named Tai Yang. Kieran listened to his communications, translated by Yuna's systems. "Red Squadron, follow my lead. We're going for the nerve cluster on that big one." "That's suicide, Tai Yang," another pilot responded. "Maybe, but if we don't take it out, those people down there die. And I didn't fly 3 years through empty space to let that happen." The fighters dove toward the largest Kresh bioship, dodging acidic projectiles and organic missiles. Half of them didn't make it, but Tai Yang and his remaining pilots delivered their payload directly into the bioship's nerve cluster. The explosion was catastrophic. The Kresh swarm faltered. With their command ship destroyed, the remaining bioships became confused. The hive mind was disrupted. In that moment of weakness, the combined fleet struck with everything they had. The battle lasted 4 more hours. When it was over, the Kresh swarm retreated. 23 of their bioships were destroyed. The rest fled into deep space. But the victory came with a heavy cost. 3 human ships were completely destroyed. 2 of Kieran's vessels were so badly damaged they would never fly again. And hundreds of crew members from both sides were dead. Kieran requested permission to meet Captain Jinwoo in person. They arranged to meet on the colony's main station in a neutral conference room. Kieran didn't know what to expect. The old legends described Terrans as terrifying warriors. But when Jinwoo entered the room, Kieran saw something different. He saw a tired officer who had lost friends, someone who carried the weight of command the same way Kieran did. Jinwoo's eyes showed sorrow for the crew members he had lost, but also determination to continue fighting. "Thank you for coming," Kieran said in halting Terran language. He had been studying it during the battle. Jinwoo smiled slightly. "Thank you for trusting us. I know it wasn't easy." They sat down across from each other. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Jinwoo began explaining why Earth had sent the expeditionary fleet. They weren't conquerors. They were explorers, looking for the civilizations their ancestors had once met, looking for allies. 200 years ago, Earth was attacked by a species similar to the Kresh, Jinwoo said. "We called them the Devourers. They almost destroyed us. Billions died. But we learned how to fight them, how to disrupt hive minds, how to turn their strengths into weaknesses." "Why help us?" Kieran asked. "We attacked you. We treated you as enemies." "Because you were afraid," Jinwoo replied simply. "Fear makes people do things they regret. But actions in battle show true character. Your fleet could have retreated and saved yourselves. Instead, You stayed to protect civilians. That tells me everything I need to know about the Veltari. Kieran felt something shift inside him. The legends were wrong, not about the humans being warriors. That part was true. But the old texts had forgotten to mention that humans were also capable of compassion, of sacrifice, of understanding. The Kresh will return, Kieran said. This was just a probing attack. Next time they'll bring more ships. I know, Jinwoo agreed. And when they do, we'll face them together, if you'll have us. Kieran extended his hand in the human gesture of greeting he had seen in the old records. Jinwoo took it, and they shook. It was the first time in 10,000 years that a Veltari and a human had made this gesture of friendship. But even as they talked about cooperation and alliance, new reports were coming in. The Kresh weren't just attacking Thessa 7, they were hitting colonies across the entire Dominion frontier, and their main fleet, the one that had been gathering strength for cycles, was heading toward only one place. Veltar Prime, the throne world, the heart of the Dominion. The Dominion Council chamber was in chaos. Representatives from 300 star systems argued with each other, their voices echoing off the crystalline walls. Some demanded immediate evacuation of Veltar Prime. Others insisted they should negotiate with the Kresh. A few wanted to destroy the human fleet before it grew stronger. Kieran stood at the edge of the chamber, watching the politicians waste precious time. Every hour they debated, the Kresh swarm moved closer to the throne world. Intelligence reports showed 300 bioships heading their way. The largest Kresh fleet ever assembled. This is pointless, said a voice beside him. Kieran turned to see Captain Jinwoo standing there, wearing his Earth military uniform. The human had been invited to address the council, but they kept making him wait while they argued among themselves. They're afraid, Kieran said. Fear makes people foolish. Fear also makes them dangerous, Jinwoo replied. Half of them want to blame us for this, like we somehow brought the Kresh here. It was true. Many council members believed the human arrival had triggered the Kresh invasion. They thought the swarm had been watching, waiting for a moment of weakness. Some even suggested handing the humans over to the Kresh as a peace offering. Finally, the council speaker called for order. Jinwoo was invited to the center of the chamber. Every eye in the room focused on him. Kieran could feel the hostility radiating from many of the representatives. Captain Jinwoo of Earth, the speaker began, you stand before the Dominion Council accused of bringing catastrophe to our people. What do you say in your defense? Jinwoo looked around the chamber calmly. When he spoke, his voice carried clearly to every corner. I say you're wasting time on blame when you should be preparing for battle. The Kresh don't care about politics, they don't negotiate, they consume. And in 3 cycles, they'll arrive at this world. You can spend that time arguing, or you can spend it fighting for survival. How dare you lecture us, one representative shouted. Your arrival caused this crisis. No, another voice interrupted. It was Commander Do-hyun, one of the human strategic officers. He had entered the chamber behind Jinwoo. The Kresh have been probing your borders for years. We found their scout ships in our sensor logs. They've been studying you, learning your patterns. Our arrival didn't cause the invasion. It just gave them an excuse to attack while you were distracted. Do-hyun approached the central holographic display and uploaded data from the human fleet's computers. The display showed Kresh movement patterns going back 5 cycles. Every probe, every scout ship, every test of Dominion defenses. They were always going to attack, Do-hyun continued. The question is whether you'll face them alone or with allies who know how to fight them. The chamber fell silent. The evidence was undeniable. The Kresh had been planning this for years. The speaker looked at Do-hyun. You said you know how to fight them. Explain. Do-hyun activated another display. It showed the internal structure of Kresh bioships, their neural networks, the way they communicated through bioresonance. The Kresh operate through a collective consciousness. Every drone, every bioship is connected to their hive mind. It makes them coordinated and efficient. But it's also a weakness. If we can overload their neural network with specific electromagnetic pulses, we can stun the entire swarm simultaneously. How? The speaker asked. It requires precise timing. Every ship in the defensive fleet must fire pulse weapons at exact coordinates around the Kresh formation. The pulses will interact, creating a resonance cascade that disrupts their bioresonance network. For about 17 seconds, they'll be blind and helpless. 17 seconds, a council member said skeptically. What can we do in 17 seconds? Everything, Jinwoo answered. In 17 seconds, a combined human Veltari fleet can destroy their command ships, scatter their formation, and break their coordinated attack. But it requires perfect timing and complete trust between our forces. The chamber erupted in debate again. Some representatives thought it was impossible. Others argued it was too risky. A few insisted that the humans were lying, trying to trick them into a vulnerable position. Finally, the eldest council member spoke. She was ancient, even by Veltari standards, and everyone respected her wisdom. I was young when the Terrans last walked among us, she said quietly. I remember the old stories, not the legends, but the actual history. The Terrans were our friends once. They taught us things, helped us grow. Then they disappeared, and we were so hurt by their absence that we turned them into monsters in our stories. She looked directly at Jinwoo. But they weren't monsters. They were people just like us. And now they've come back, and we're making the same mistake our ancestors did. We're choosing fear over friendship. She raised her voice so everyone could hear. I say we fight alongside them. I say we trust them. And I say we show the Kresh that the Dominion is not alone. The vote was close, but it passed. The Dominion would coordinate with the human fleet. They would make their stand at Veltar Prime. The next 2 cycles were spent in frantic preparation. Every available ship was called to the throne world. The Veltari assembled 90 warships, the largest fleet they had gathered in centuries. The humans contributed 37 vessels, including reinforcements that had been traveling behind Jinwoo's original group. Kieran was given joint command of the defensive fleet alongside Jinwoo. It was an unprecedented arrangement. No Veltari commander had ever shared authority with an alien species. But these were unprecedented times. They planned the battle together, combining Veltari strength with human tactics. The Veltari ships would form the defensive core, using their powerful shields to protect the throne world. The human vessels would be the mobile strike force, hitting the Kresh where they were weakest. Lieutenant Yuna worked with Veltari communications officers to create a unified command network. Every ship, human and Veltari, would be connected. Orders could be transmitted instantly. Commander Hana trained Veltari crews on electromagnetic pulse weapons. The Veltari had the technology, but had never used it in this way. The humans showed them how to calibrate the weapons for maximum effect against bioresonance. And Ensign Taeyang, who had lost half his squadron at Thessa 7, worked with Veltari fighter pilots. The Dominion had fighters too, but they rarely used them. Taeyang taught them the aggressive, unpredictable tactics that kept human pilots alive. On the 3rd cycle, the Kresh arrived. 300 bioships emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. They were massive, some of them larger than anything the Veltari had ever built. Their organic hulls pulsed with sickly colors. Acidic weapons charged. The swarm began its advance toward Veltar Prime. Kieran stood on his bridge, now equipped with human technology that let him communicate with Jinwoo's ship directly. The human captain appeared on a holographic display. "They're bigger than I expected," Jinwoo said. "Can your plan still work?" Kieran asked. It has to. There's no other option. The combined fleet moved into position. Veltari warships formed 3 defensive lines around the planet. Human vessels scattered throughout the formation, ready to strike. Fighter squadrons, both human and Veltari, waited in the launch bays. The Kresh didn't pause or attempt communication. They simply attacked. The battle began with a wave of acidic projectiles. The Veltari shields held, but barely. Kresh bioships swarmed around the defensive lines, trying to find weak points. Human ships darted in and out, targeting the joints in Kresh armor, disrupting their formations. For 3 hours, the battle raged. Ships on both sides took damage. The Veltari defensive lines held, but they were being pushed back. The humans fought with incredible skill, but they were outnumbered. Slowly, inevitably, the Kresh were winning. It's time, Do-Yun said from his station. If we don't execute the plan now, we'll lose the chance. Jinwoo looked at Kieran. Are your ships ready? As ready as they'll ever be, Kieran replied. All ships, Jinwoo transmitted across the unified network. This is it. Execute Operation Cascade on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark. Every ship in the combined fleet fired their electromagnetic pulse weapons simultaneously. The carefully calibrated pulses spread through space, intersecting at precise coordinates around the Kresh formation. The pulses began to interact, building in intensity, creating a cascading wave of electromagnetic energy. The Kresh swarm suddenly went silent. 300 bioships stopped moving, their weapons powered down. Their neural network, overloaded by the resonance cascade, simply shut off. 17 seconds, that was all they had. All weapons, fire! Kieran and Jinwoo shouted together. The combined fleet unleashed everything they had. Particle beams, missiles, railguns, and energy weapons struck the helpless Kresh bioships. The humans focused on command vessels. The Veltari targeted the largest bioships. Fighter squadrons led by Tai Yang and his Veltari counterparts dove into the Kresh formation, targeting vulnerable nerve clusters. Explosions blossomed across space as bioship after bioship died. 15 seconds, 14, 13. Commander Hana's ship, the Dauntless, performed impossible maneuvers, destroying 5 Kresh bioships in rapid succession. Veltari warships advanced, their weapons cutting through the disabled swarm like knives. 10 seconds, 9, 8. The Kresh command ships died first. Without them, the swarm would lose coordination. Even if they recovered from the pulse, they would be confused, vulnerable. 5 seconds, 4, 3. Pull back, Jinwoo ordered. Get clear of the Kresh formation. The combined fleet retreated just as the 17 seconds expired. The Kresh swarm began to stir again. But it was too late. Their command structure was shattered, their formation was broken, and when they looked around, they saw that over 100 of their bioships were destroyed. The remaining Kresh turned and fled. Victory. The celebration lasted 3 days. Across Veltar Prime, people gathered in the streets, their crystalline bodies glowing with joy. They had faced annihilation and survived. The throne world was safe. The Dominion would continue. But Captain Jinwoo stood apart from the celebrations, looking out at the stars from his quarters aboard the Indomitable. They had won the battle, but the war was far from over. The Kresh would regroup. They would return stronger. And next time, they would be prepared for the electromagnetic pulse tactic. A chime at his door interrupted his thoughts. Commander Kieran entered, looking tired but satisfied. You should be celebrating with the others, Kieran said. I'm not good at celebrations, Jinwoo replied. Too much time thinking about the cost. They had lost 12 human ships in the battle. 8 Veltari warships were destroyed. Thousands of crew members from both species would never go home. Victory always came with a price. I wanted to thank you, Kieran said, not just for the battle, but for proving that the legends were wrong about your people." "Were they wrong?" Jinwoo asked. "We are warriors. That part of the legends was true. But you're not conquerors. You're defenders. There's a difference." Jinwoo smiled slightly. "On Earth, we have a saying. The strongest warrior is the one who fights for others, not for himself." The next day, the formal ceremonies began. The Dominion Council gathered in their grand hall, along with representatives from every major world. For the first time in 10,000 years, humans stood among them as equals. The treaty was called the Veltar Accords. It established formal diplomatic relations between Earth and the Veltari Dominion. It created military cooperation agreements. It opened trade routes and cultural exchanges. And most importantly, it declared that both species would stand together against threats like the Kresh. Jinwoo signed for humanity. The council speaker signed for the Veltari. The moment their signatures were added to the document, something changed in the galaxy. The age of isolation was over. The age of cooperation had begun. But even as they signed, everyone knew the real challenges were just beginning. The Kresh would return. And there were other dangers in the galaxy, threats that neither species had faced yet. Lieutenant Yuna approached Jinwoo after the ceremony. She had been working with Veltari linguists, and her face showed excitement mixed with concern. "Sir, I've been analyzing some deep space transmissions we picked up during the battle. There's something you need to see." She pulled up data on her portable display. Strange signals coming from the Galactic Rim. They were unlike anything in either human or Veltari databases. "Another species?" Jinwoo asked. "Maybe, but these signals, they're too complex, too advanced. If it is another civilization, they're far beyond anything we've encountered." Jinwoo studied the data. The signals used mathematical patterns that suggested intelligence, but they also contained elements that neither human nor Veltari science could explain. "Have you shown this to the Veltari?" he asked. "Commander Kiran is looking at it now. He's as puzzled as I am." Jinwoo found Kiran in the communications center, surrounded by Veltari scientists and human technicians working together. The sight would have been impossible just a few weeks ago. Now it seemed natural. "What do you make of it?" Jinwoo asked. Kiran shook his head. "It's beyond our current understanding. But I can tell you one thing. Whoever sent these signals has technology far superior to ours. If they're hostile..." He didn't need to finish the sentence. Both of them understood. The Kresh had nearly destroyed the Dominion. What could a species even more advanced do? "Maybe they're not hostile," Jinwoo suggested. "Maybe they're just trying to communicate." "Or maybe they're warning us about something," Kiran replied. Over the next few cycles, as the combined fleet made repairs and prepared for future operations, more information came in about the galaxy beyond Dominion space. There were dozens of other species out there, some peaceful, some aggressive, most simply trying to survive. The galaxy was more crowded and dangerous than anyone had realized. The Veltari had been so focused on maintaining their small corner of space that they had ignored the larger picture. And Earth had been isolated for so long that they had forgotten how complex galactic politics could be. Jinwoo received new orders from Earth Command. The expeditionary fleet would continue its mission, but now with a new purpose. They would explore beyond Dominion space, make contact with other species, and build alliances. The goal was to create a network of civilizations that could stand together against threats like the Kresh, but they wouldn't go alone. Commander Kiran volunteered to join them, along with a group of Veltari ships and crews. When his superiors questioned this decision, Kiran gave a simple answer. "I've read the ancient texts again, the real ones, not the legends. Our ancestors worked alongside the Terrans. They learned from each other. They were stronger together than apart. I want to continue that tradition." The combined fleet prepared for departure. The Indomitable would lead, accompanied by the Veltari warship, crystalline dawn, now under Kieran's command. Other human and Veltari vessels would join them, creating the first truly mixed-species fleet in modern galactic history. On the day of departure, crowds gathered to watch the ships leave. Children pointed at the sky as the vessels rose into orbit. Stories would be told about this moment for generations. The day when humanity and the Veltari stopped being separate and became something new. Partners, allies, friends. Aboard the Indomitable, Jinwoo stood on the bridge with his crew. Yuna was at communications, already working on translation programs for the languages they might encounter. Tai Yang was in the fighter bay, training new pilots in the mixed combat techniques they had developed. Commander Hana was reviewing tactical data, preparing for whatever they might face. And on the view screen, Kieran's face appeared from the crystalline dawn. "Ready to explore the unknown together?" Kieran asked. "Always," Jinwoo replied. The fleet engaged their faster-than-light drives and disappeared into the darkness between stars. They were heading toward the galactic rim, toward the source of those mysterious signals. What they would find there, nobody knew, but they would find it together. Back on Veltar Prime in the Great Archives, scholars began updating the ancient texts. The old legends about the Terrans were being rewritten, not as stories of fearsome warriors who disappeared into myth, but as the true history of a species that had returned to help their old friends in a moment of desperate need. The new texts spoke of Captain Jinwoo and his fleet, of Lieutenant Yuna, who bridged the language gap, of Commander Hana, who fought with impossible courage, of Ensign Tai Yang, who led squadrons into the heart of battle, and of Commander Kieran, the Veltari, who chose to trust when trust seemed impossible. But the texts also included a warning. The galaxy was vast and full of dangers. The Kresh would return. Other threats lurked in the darkness. The peace they had won was fragile. Yet the texts ended with hope, because now humanity and the Veltari stood together, and where one species might fall, two could stand firm. The signals from the galactic rim continued. Whatever was out there was still trying to communicate. The combined fleet would reach the source in approximately 60 cycles. Until then, they would explore, make new contacts, and prepare for whatever came next. Aboard the Indomitable, Jinwoo recorded a message to send back to Earth. He wanted to tell them about the Veltari, about the battle, about the alliance they had formed. But more than that, he wanted to tell them about what he had learned. "We left Earth looking for the civilizations our ancestors once knew," he said into the recorder. "We found them, but not as we expected. They had changed. They had forgotten us. They feared us. But underneath the fear and the legends, we found something else. We found people who were worth knowing, worth fighting alongside, worth calling friends." He paused, looking out at the stars rushing past. "The old records say humanity once tried to bring species together, to build something bigger than any one civilization. We failed then. We went silent for 10,000 years. But maybe we get a second chance. Maybe this time we can do it right, not as conquerors or legends, but as equals." The message was sent. It would take years to reach Earth. Traveling through the relay stations the Veltari had established. By the time Earth received it, who knew what the fleet would have discovered? What new allies they would have made? What new challenges they would have faced? The journey continued. Behind them, the legends faded into history. Ahead of them, reality waited to be discovered. Lieutenant Yuna looked up from her console, excitement in her eyes. "Sir, I'm detecting another signal. This one's closer. It's coming from a nearby system. I think it's a distress call." Jinwoo exchanged a look with Kieran on the view screen. Both of them understood what this meant. Another species in trouble. Another chance to prove that the alliance between humanity and the Veltari meant something. "All ships, change course," Jinwoo ordered. Let's see who needs our help. The fleet altered trajectory, heading toward the new signals. In the fighter bay, Taeyang and his pilots prepared their craft. In the tactical center, Hana ran simulations of possible threats. Throughout both human and Veltari ships, crews moved to their stations with practiced efficiency. They didn't know what they would find, but they knew they would face it together. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, the mysterious signals from the galactic rim continued. Waiting, watching. Whatever had sent them was patient. It had waited for 10,000 years. It could wait a little longer. The age of legends was over. The age of reality had begun. And in that reality, humanity and the Veltari were writing a new story. Not of war and conquest, but of cooperation and hope. The galaxy was vast. The challenges were enormous, the threats were real. But they would face them together. And that made all the difference.